Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
And we are back. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you once again for tuning in and always for believing in me. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I'm at with this podcast. And if it wasn't for these amazing guests that I bring on who get vulnerable and they share their light with us. And today's going to be no different. I can't wait for you to hear this woman's amazing story. First of all, thanks to my sponsors, Siegfried and Jensen, Wasatch Recovery Thread Wallets. And then the music you heard at the beginning, at the end, is by my good friend Paul Cardall. He's an amazing award-winning pianist and just one of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. So thank you for letting me use your music. And like I said, thanks for tuning in week after week. Today we are joined by Kate Strong. Kate, thanks for being here.
Todd, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So we've got a few mutual friends, Tiffany Peterson and Adam Nugent. And I was on your podcast a while ago, and it's just great that, kind of a small world, right? And it's just good to connect with you.
I agree. I love being here. I feel like, energy is so magnetic.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep attracting the same people and kind of being in these same circles, because we're talking about the same things.
Yeah.
We're lit up by the same things.
Yep.
We're bringing those things into the conversation. So I'm happy to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you're a life coach, a self-care advocate. You're founder of My Strong World, which I love the name of that, by the way. And we're going to talk a lot about what that looks like. You are someone who speaks, you help people, you're, doing all these things that are making a difference in this world. Mm. And we're going to get into all those details. But I think where we would like to start is tell us where you grew up and maybe a little bit about your childhood.
Okay, well, maybe you can hear it in the accent. It might come out a little bit.
Yeah.
I grew up in Alabama.
All right.
And just 3 sisters. My mom was single most of our lives.
Okay.
And just a small town in Alabama. It's actually called Fairhope, Alabama. It's across the bay from Mobile.
All right.
And about 45 minutes north of the Gulf Coast. So I'm a beach bum at heart.
Okay.
Barefoot and just a
Yeah.
swimsuit and call it good. I mean, my friends always tell me my best look is on the beach. So
Yeah, you got to love the beach. So tell us a little bit about how you were as a child. Were you an outgoing? I mean, you carry yourself so well right now, like just confident and out there doing things. Were you like that when you were younger?
Yeah, I've always been really outgoing.
Okay.
And I've always been spunky. I grew up as a tomboy. I'm definitely more feminine today. I've leaned into that and embraced receiving in a way.
Sure.
But growing up in a home with a single mom, I always took on the kind of like the role of what boys do, which is weird because nowadays I don't even think that we think this way. But back then in Alabama, if you needed the handle on the toilet to be fixed, that was a guy's job, right? Or a boy's job, or like, hey, somebody come fix the TV, right? I'm talking about those kind of things, like techie kind of tinkery kind of things.
Yeah.
I was always the one that was doing those things. I was outside playing with boys and running around and getting dirty.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you bring this up. And Todd, I'm not sure if you're ready to go here yet, but I've been, I hosted a 3-day masterclass this week. And it's called Turn On Your Pleasure, and talking about pleasure in the 5 senses and like how do we really get in tune with our bodies and experience the third dimension of life, right? So often we're just kind of like shut down or turning off those things. And I didn't expect this to come up on day one, but because you're asking me about my childhood and specifically about what I was like, I was actually really confident until. And I'll never forget it. I walked into a friend's house, a neighbor's house, and I walked in with my girlfriend. It was her house. She had a twin brother. And we walked downstairs. There were all these boys playing video games. And we sat down on the couch and we were in there for a little while. Yeah. And it didn't take too long. And one of the boys called me Jabba the Cunt. And I don't think I ever thought of myself as being anything other than perfection.
Yeah.
Until that moment.
Ooh.
And then fast forward a little bit, and we were at a pool party, And there's the smaller inner tubes, the blow up rings, and then there's the bigger ones for adults. And so there was one of the smaller ones, and all my friends, all the kids were like diving through it to see if they could make it without touching. Like don't touch the sides, right? Like, so you're getting the smallest little, toothpick through the tube. And when I dove through it, it got stuck around my waist. And so to come up out of the water, right? Not only did I not make it, it was the tube was literally stuck around me. And again, I don't think you would look back and look at pictures and be like, whoa, Kate.
Yeah.
But it was those two specific moments in my life as a young girl that I realized, or I had these moments of like shame about my body and what I looked like. Wow. And a lot of what I do today is about loving our bodies and about not betraying it and really like waking up to the body and to this physical human experience. And so I think I was really confident until moments like that happened. And the truth is, I think we all have something. I think there's a moment in time that everyone has an experience where someone says, you're dumb, you're not enough, you don't look the way you're supposed to, you're annoying, whatever it is, right? Yeah. But there's something that someone says to all of us as humans that breaks us down or that tells us something, and it plants a seed.
Right.
And then we find ways to validate that over and over and over and over again in our lives until we actually believe that it's who we are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Wow. It's, I'm reflecting back on my childhood a little bit, and I was a really skinny kid. I mean, skinny. And I didn't think anything of it. I knew I was skinny, but then I heard some people laughing about how skinny I was, and I overheard it. And just overhearing that just crushed me.
Yeah.
I was in 7th grade, and I just remember going, I look funny. Yeah. And, a little different, but that's what I felt. And I would fantasize in my mind about having big muscles and, people loving me for my muscles. But it was one of those tough moments. And again, you don't know that's coming, you're not expecting it. And, that kid to say that horrible thing to you, I'm sure all the other kids laughed or whatever. And then you're feeling like this big, that you're no good kind of thing. And so it's interesting how just the power of a word can really change the course of what we think about ourselves.
I agree. And I would say for me, I'm always looking for things in my life to ask myself the question, how is this happening for me instead of to me?
Absolutely.
And so as I look back now, I mean, of course, back then that young girl, that 11-year-old Katie back in the day didn't know or have the tools that I do today. But I can look back at that moment now and say, how did that happen for me?
Yeah.
And the truth is, I grew up in a household where there were yo-yo diets, there was binge eating, there was lack of, family meals and things like that. And it really taught me to, okay, I want to take control and be able to learn, right? Yeah. Like how to nourish myself, how to be healthy, how to exercise, how to take care of my body. And it's fascinating because sometimes people will look at me today. In fact, I had someone tell me this 3 weeks ago. She said, Kate, I don't know that you have a lot of credibility to talk about what you talk about because you don't look like other women do. And I thought, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do things every single day. I've created habits.
Yeah.
I've literally rewired and reprogrammed my brain. I'm super mindful and aware. It doesn't mean I don't understand.
Right.
We've all had an experience, but what I do know is I know what works.
Yeah.
And the reason that I'm credible and the reason why I'm the expert on the subject matter, if you will, to be able to say, hey, you can do this is because I've done it. Right. Yeah. But it is fascinating, right? That there's this maybe thought of like, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so when this conversation came up and I shared that, I'm like, I actually do know.
No, you do. And that person hasn't seen the blood, sweat, and tears that's gone on behind the scenes most of your life to get you to where you're at today. And that is a very shallow comment, to be honest, because, it's like, how do they don't know your story. They don't know, like, I remember hearing this once, that you could never hate someone or discredit someone if you walked in their shoes from the time they were born up to this moment. You would go, oh, I totally get them. So for us to quickly say something like that is just, it's just ignorant in my opinion. But yeah, they don't know the blood, sweat, and tears behind the scenes.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I always just take that and say, well, that's just their own projection, right? I mean, that's their belief, right? Like, you must not understand.
But it can still sting a little bit, right?
I think it always I always kind of pause, and then again, I have to go back to, okay, what do I know for sure? How, right? And go through this whole process, because the truth is, we could walk around all day and be offended if we choose to be. We will always find reasons to be offended.
Yeah. And what's cool, life happens for us. I totally believe that. It's one of the things I teach my clients as well. And really that comment happened for you because you had to take a step back and go reconfirm who you really are. So thank you for that comment, whoever that person was, because it just solidified who you are in your own mind, going, you know what, I got this.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Beautiful.
I know. It was almost like the fire. It lit the fire underneath me to oh no, I'm going to actually be the outside is going to represent what's going on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I know you'll love this, and you probably say this all the time, but your energy introduces itself the moment you walk into the room, right? You have this energy about you that's awesome, by the way. You can feel it. You don't even have to say a word. I can feel it, and I can feel it even now. How did you figure this out? Because, what happened? Yeah. Tell us how you got to figure out this, intention, creation, manifestation, energy, all this stuff. How did you get to learn this, and how did you figure this out?
I love this question, Todd. I think it came from rock bottom, really.
Okay.
I was at a place in my life where it felt like everything was kind of falling apart. Mm-hmm. And I just recently gotten divorced. And one thing that happens in divorce is that I had set myself up for a lot of really great things for my kids. I wanted to make sure that my kids didn't have the experience that I had.
Right.
And so we had a co-parent coach. We had a divorce coach. I actually also hired a life coach because I thought, if I have this team, right, I believe we're the sum of the 5 people we surround ourselves with.
Yeah, I love that.
So I thought, okay, if I have this team of people around me to help me and support me and teach me and coach me and tell me what to do, because I was just one of those people back in the day that was like, just tell me what to do. And so I just started literally I was a sponge, and I was learning and I was growing. And pretty early on, I adopted, I had this moment where I realized that self-care mattered, that I needed to start taking care of myself. Now, I was on low. I had been to a doctor. He's like, your adrenal fatigue, cortisol is out, off the charts, all these different things. And so I knew that my body was in literally survival mode. Yeah. And so I started doing these things to just physically take care of myself, is where it started. So physical self-care became a priority. And for years and years and years and years and years, as a mom, I believed that self-care was selfish. That if I was going to go, if I was going to go to the gym and not be home when my kids woke up, then that was selfish. If I was going to take time away from these experiences that I might miss of my kids because I was going to do something for myself, it felt selfish. And I found ways to validate that, and culture did that for me. Yeah. So the first thing was I'm just going to choose me, and I'm going to give myself permission to fill my cup first. And then what happened is I started noticing, I'm not yelling at my kids as much. Yeah. Or maybe hardly ever. Yeah. Or, wow, I have more energy now than I did before. And so I'm more actively involved. Yeah. And I'm spending more quality time with them. Right. And there were these different things that I started seeing. So that was the seed that was planted with physical self-care. Okay. And then I got into mindset, and I realized, whoa, there's another pillar to this self-care thing, and it's called mental self-care. Yeah. And I just learned from the great ones. I quote him all the time, but Dr. Joe Dispenza says we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, 90% are the same, and you can reprogram. And I was like, okay, well, the bad news is that I'm programmed, but the good news is I can reprogram, right? So I just consumed everything I could possibly find, and everything I could consume of like the mind and how powerful it is. And I thought, if I can get control over this mind and I can make it start working for me, then that's going to be a superpower. So that was step 2. Step 3 was emotional. I realized that, and I still believe this till this day, is that the body keeps the score. There's a fantastic book around it. Yep. And that every experience, every trauma that I had experienced in my life that I had not chosen to deal with or to work through. On some cellular level, my body was holding on to it.
Yeah.
And my practice, where it all started coming out for me, is yoga. And so I would literally be in yoga practice.
Yeah.
And one thing in yoga, when something is painful or tight, instead of pulling away, they tell you to breathe and lean in.
Breathe and lean in.
So I'm like breathing and leaning into the pain, but because of I'm letting the breath take me in. One day I think I was just doing yoga and I said to myself or to the pain, what is this?
Yeah.
Maybe it was just curiosity, and I had a whole experience open up. It was pain in my hip, and it had to do with a situation when I was a teenage girl in the back of a car, literally, with a boy who wanted to kiss me and make out.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really into it, but instead of saying no, I didn't want to make it awkward, and I didn't want whatever. And so I just went with it. Now, it wasn't that big of a deal, right, Todd? It wasn't like this is like a huge big thing, but my body remembered it. And when I literally allowed myself to like feel it and feel the like feeling that felt like of self-betrayal, it literally went away. And at the end of the class, I was like, I don't know what just happened, but that was the wildest thing that I've ever had happen. So I just kept doing it with yoga, and I eventually learned that, wow, my body, I can really start to heal my body as I start to let go of the emotions. And then layered to that was working with clients, and I have a background in personal training and nutrition. And so I'd work with all these clients, right? That they're holding on to weight.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter if they're exercising or eating, the weight is still there. And what I realized is that that's emotional weight. You're literally holding on to something emotional. And if we can get to the root of that and to watch people transform was powerful. So that became my third pillar of self-care.
Wow.
And then the fourth was spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I was religious before, and at the time I wasn't. But I had this experience where it was like, Kate, you're a really spiritual being. Like, don't just throw everything away.
Right, yeah.
And I really got in touch with, it's what I call is ask yourself. So I believe that everything's inside of us. All the answers are inside of us. And when we will just listen and ask, it will come, right? Now, there's different ways that those answers will come, right? But they truly are inside of us. So I became really spiritually aligned with, like, I call her the higher version of myself, like the potential. Like there's another great book. It's Be Your Future Self Now. And just like that future, like higher version. And then fifth is social, which is social self-care. Our circles matter. Who we spend our time with matters. And I've learned that if we really want to accelerate and grow and like live these like abundant, big lives, it's who are we surrounding ourselves with? So those 5 pillars of self-care became the foundation for me, and they literally lit me up from the inside out because I knew myself, right? I'm like, whoa, wait. My mind isn't controlling me. I'm taking care of my body. I'm feeling my feelings and I'm being okay with it. I'm letting them move through my body. I'm letting it and then that ask yourself and surrounding myself with people. I would say that those 5 are just anyone who can start to really, really dig into that. Now, this is over a decade, right? I started this a decade ago and it takes consistently showing up.
Right.
But literally what we think we become.
Yeah.
So.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You are lit up.
Yeah. I feel lit up. I feel like like I'm turned on. Like I literally teach about turn on.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
And it's like I got plugged back in or like the light, my light came back on, right? I started living again. I started, again, as simple as asking myself, what do I want to eat? What sounds good?
Yeah.
Well, I spent 20 years of my life doing what everybody else wanted to do, eating where everybody else wanted to eat, thinking, well, I'm just easy. I'm agreeable. Yeah. I'm easy to be around. I like everything. But the truth is I was never even checking in to be like, what does sound good to me? What is nourishing? What would I enjoy right now?
Yeah. Wow. And those pillars that you're talking about, that doesn't come easy. Like you had to work your butt off. Like you're working. I mean, have you always been this hard worker? Because, it sounds like you were like, okay, I'm all in. Here we go. I'm going down this path.
I think so. For a long time, I was shut off. And when I was shut off, I don't know that I had the energy or the light that I do today. Mm-hmm. But I've always, one of my values is growth.
Okay.
So I've always been growth minded. I've always been into personal development. Like I want to be the best version of myself I can possibly be.
Yeah.
Because what I've really learned is that I actually feel better, right? As I continue to grow and I continue to expand, and I think the world gets brighter.
Yeah. Wow. So you won't be able to see it, but it's behind you. I have another quote on my wall that says, "The most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire." It's by Ferdinand Foch. And I mean, that's what I'm feeling here. I'm feeling this fire from you, and what a way to live. And I love what you said, because you decided that taking care of yourself wasn't selfish, it was selfless, because you showed up better for the people around you. Is that accurate?
100%. 100%. And I appreciate you reading this quote. As you said it, in fact, I wanted to touch on one more thing.
Please.
And it is on that. It's under the fourth pillar of self-care, which is spiritual alignment.
Yeah.
Part of that also is knowing your values, what you desire, and what your strengths are.
Yeah.
And so I did a couple of different things. Clifton Strength Finder, one of my favorite assessments there is out there. Basically, the concept is, instead of working so hard to be good at what you're not, focus on what your natural strengths and abilities are, right? So I took that assessment and I found out like, oh, it's actually, I'm a woo, which is winning others over. I love people and I'm good at communicating and positivity, and I'm a maximizer, which means I can take an idea or I can take a thing and like bring all the people in and like really like take it to the next level. And so getting to know myself, like, oh, I'm actually really good at all of these things. And then learning about my core values, like what are the things that like really matter to me, and aligning that with my desires and asking, like, what do you really want?
Yeah.
Like if you could have anything in the world, my favorite question, if you could have anything in the world, what would you want, Todd? If you could have anything in the world.
Wake up in a good mood consistently.
Superpower, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that?
Because, and again, I'm fortunate enough to being taught by giants before me that showed me that that's what success should be. And if I could wish, because I could have wished for $1 million and all this stuff, but if I'm waking up in a bad mood, what's the point?
Exactly.
Right? So that's what I would probably do.
I love
How about
that.
you?
Oh, today, if I could have anything in the world, today, you know what? If I could have anything in the world, it would be that all of my kids would truly, deeply love themselves.
Wow. I love that.
I think the human experience, if we could all love ourselves, right?
Yeah, that gives me chills when
Self-love.
you're saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how true is that? Because, it's funny. I'll ask clients of mine who have children, who, they're sitting on the couch that you're sitting on, and they've blown up their lives with drugs and alcohol. And I'll ask them, what's your value as a human being between 0 and 100%? And it's typically well below 50%. They'll say, I'm at a 25. And then I'll say, what's your kid's name again? Oh, it's Sarah. What's Sarah's value? Instantly, 100. And I go, isn't it funny? You can see it in them instantly, but with you, you're having a hard time seeing them. And this is the problem. So I love that you said that. Like, for us to love us, love ourselves, I mean, that to me is, I'm with you. That's a gift that is amazing. It
is amazing. Our kids, right? I coach clients as well, and oftentimes I think that as parents we think, well, what should I do? What should I do? It's like, just be that. Yeah. Just be that, right? The greatest thing you can do is take care of yourself. If you want your kids to take care of themselves, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Practice self-care.
Yeah.
Show up for yourself. Turn your light on. Right? And then what do they do? They see it and they're like, well, wait a second. I want that. Todd, when I first started talking about turn on, I was really reluctant, because I know that where everybody's mind first goes when you say turn on, right? It's like, oh, what kind of podcast is this going to be?
Exactly.
But there's so much more, right? It's like, let's start at the foundation. But I remember being a little reluctant with some of the things, and then thinking, are my kids, are they going to get it? Are they whatever? And recently I was talking to my oldest, Savannah, she's 17, and just kind of talking to her about different things. She looked at me, she goes, Mom, I already know all this. And I just kind of looked at her like, really? And we just get to remember they're paying attention.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hey, we need to have a sit down conversation about this. It's like, no, if you're just being that, it just like naturally comes up. Like they're just paying attention. Yeah. They are paying attention, and they don't miss a thing.
Wow, that is so true.
Right? So just be it.
Yeah.
The greatest gift we can give our kids.
Yeah.
If I want my kids to love themselves, well, guess what? I get to love myself.
Yeah. Show them the
Yeah.
way. Be the message. Have you read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle? So in there, you remember when he says, stop quoting Buddha and be Buddha. Like, be the message. I can quote Buddha all day long, but if I'm not being that, being calm and sympathetic and compassionate and loving, right? What does that mean? Our kids pick up on that too. Well, you're saying this, but you're doing this,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So great. I'm glad you said that.
So one of the things I'm known for is being an integration coach. And what that means is I create retreats, I create experiences, workshops, events where people come and they consume a lot of really awesome content and information and they're lit up and it's like they've got all the tools, right?
Yeah.
But then what do you do when you leave that safe circle?
Right.
And you now go integrate that into your life, daily life.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the embodiment, right? It's like be in the classroom, learn all the things. That's awesome.
Right.
It's amazing. That's step number 1.
Yeah.
But number 2, which is the greatest, which is what you just quoted, is now embody that.
Yeah.
Become that. Integrate that into your life. And that's where the true change happens.
Yeah. I love that. Well, you're doing a lot of amazing things. I want to know more about My Strong World.
Okay.
And you've already mentioned a few things that you're doing, but
Sure.
let's get into how did you come up with this? Obviously, the name's awesome. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I started a nonprofit 14 years ago. And, that question, if you could have anything in the world, what would you want? In fact, there was a lady, her name's Ruth Onyango. She was a former member of Kenya's parliament and on Bill Gates' board of directors when I met her.
Oh, okay.
We were on the phone talking about whatever it was. And she got on a flight, came to my house, sat down at the dinner table. And I said, Ruth, if you could have anything in the world, what would you want? And she said, a hospital for my people in Kenya. So I said, let's do it. So I rallied, put together a big fundraiser. We raised all this money. We're building a hospital in Western Kenya. Taken longer because we were enlisting the help of the government, which highly suggest if you want anything to be sustainable.
Right.
And so that's taking a while. We end up down in Belize drilling wells for clean water. And I'm doing kind of this philanthropy stuff outside of the United States. And I had someone come up to me and say, hey, Kate, I think it's really great that you're doing all these things around the world, but what are you doing locally for your people? And that's one of those moments that you kind of take that deep breath and you're like, whoo, okay, well, number one, you probably haven't been to Africa and seen the poverty there, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And so I sat with that and I thought, okay, so how can I show up in my community? And for me at the time, I was a single mom.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start supporting single moms in whatever way I can. So I was in the parking lot of a yoga studio. We had done a pajama drive for Christmas for the local women's shelter, women and children's shelter.
Yeah.
And after the class, one of the women in the class came up to me and she said, hey, Kate, I was there a year ago at the shelter with my 5 kids. And she shared her story with me. It was super, super emotional. And I got in my car and I sat there and I literally said out loud, how is she different than I am? Yeah. And it was so clear, Kate, you have resources and money. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And so my nonprofit's called Going Beyond Borders, but I created a leg of that nonprofit called My Strong World. And My Strong World is a platform to support and help women specifically with all of those 5 pillars that I talked about. And it's grown and evolved into something like bigger than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
But this is the cool story that a lot of people don't know, but I'll share with you.
Yeah, please.
So at the time, the Instagram handle, My Strong World, wasn't available. So I decided, okay, I'll do Kate Strong World. Yeah. So for years and years and years, I didn't realize this, but people started calling me Kate Strong because they thought my name was Kate Strong. Oh, yeah. And 3.5 years ago, I decided to make it legal.
No
and
way.
I went and changed my last name to Strong. And so here I am, Kate Strong, but it came from that My Strong World. Oh, and it's just a really cool story. And also,
is so cool.
in our names, like words are so powerful.
Words are powerful, yeah.
And so my own story and my own journey to get where I am today has been, it's been incredible. And I have women all the time come up and who knew where I was and where I am today. And they've said, Kate, how do you do it? And My Strong World provides the roadmap, the step-by-step, like this is how I did it. And this is how you can do it. And here's the thing, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Right.
And it's just about having community, resources, right? And
Absolutely.
money. And we can create that all day long for anyone. If you show up willing and you want to get going, I'm there to support you, and I will.
For sure.
In fact, I have a retreat coming up in May, and I always give 2 partial scholarships to that. I used to do a full scholarship, and I now know today that if you have a little bit of skin in the game, we show up differently.
Amen to that.
So instead of just doing one, now out of the 13 spaces, 2 of the women that get to come to that get a partial scholarship to come and be in that space. And watching those women grow and get lit up and join this community and see that spark lit, and like to have even seen some of them and where they are today, I can look back, and one of the things I believe is that my pain is my purpose and that my content is my medicine.
Ooh.
So everything that I've experienced.
That was powerful.
Yeah, my pain is my purpose, and my content is my medicine.
Dang. That's powerful.
Same with you, I bet, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think, so everything I teach is what I've learned. And I continue teaching and I continue showing up because it's also for me, and I'm learning and I'm growing, and I get to do something that I actually love, and to look back again, to be able to say, how is this happening for me instead of to me?
Yeah.
Well, look at what I'm doing today.
Yes.
And why do people even believe me or want to hear me? Well, because they can look at my life and go, well, you're proof. You did it.
Dang.
Yeah.
Pain is my purpose and my content is my medicine. Oh man. Gives me chills. I love that. And the listeners know that I say this a lot. I say life happens for us. And I always think of it in this way. So I took my first sip of alcohol when I was 11 years old. That led to a whole full-blown addiction. I should be dead, should have lost my life. I tried to end my life. And here I am talking to you. And I always go all the way back to that, going, had I not had that drink at 11, I wouldn't be talking to Kate Strong today. That blows my mind. Right. And I wouldn't wish on anybody what I went through, and probably same with you. You wouldn't wish what you had to go through, but at the same time, all of the things you've been through led to this moment as well. And here we are talking to each other, having an amazing conversation.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
I know.
It blows my mind.
It does. I know. Same. Dr. Wayne Dyer said the same thing. I don't know if you.
He's
a favorite.
I'm a fan.
But he said the same thing. It was because of the alcoholic boyfriend, and it was because of being in and out of foster homes that put him on the stage to tell the story. And this is what I would love to know from you, Todd. I think this is probably a rhetorical question, but don't we all have pain? Don't we all have heartache? Don't we all have like these things that like are hard? Like, I don't know who said life would be easy. And I also don't believe that we're punished for anything. It just is.
Yeah.
And how do we know the pleasure without the pain? Right?
So true.
But the human experience is to feel it all. And it's to feel the sadness. So when we can say, instead of, something's wrong with me, and like I must have been picked on or got dealt a bad hand or whatever the words are, it's more like, well, I think we all are so much more similar. The story's different, right? But the story's different. I couldn't agree more. I love how you said that. We're here to witness it and experience it and feel it, instead of avoiding it and running it. It reminds me, I work with someone here named Wendy McCarter, and she has a quote, or a definition, of what addiction is. And it's the best I've ever heard. I want to hear it.
Addiction is the perpetual avoidance of legitimate suffering. Yeah. Every time I hear it, I'm like, boom. So it's the perpetual avoidance of legitimate suffering. So we're supposed to suffer. I mean, life is suffering sometimes. Sometimes it's pleasure.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's suffering, but we're not supposed to avoid that part of it. But that's what we do a lot of times as human beings. I don't want to feel that. So I'm going to avoid it with, some people take drugs, some people, sleep, don't sleep, take, whatever it may be. But anyway, that reminded me of that when you said that.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about food recently because this came up in my master class and how we numb with food, right?
Yeah.
But also here's another thing that came to me just this week that I've been sitting with is that we deprive ourselves, okay? I'm going to speak for women. We diet, we restrict, we withhold, we tell ourselves we can't. And if we get it, it's a reward. Mm-hmm. And so we do this thing where we're literally like starving in a way.
Yeah.
And then when we finally get it, we've been so deprived that we overindulge, right?
Yeah.
And then there's guilt and shame and all of the different things.
Yeah.
And what would it be like if we, number one, could say to ourselves, you're okay, you've got this.
Yeah.
You can have a bite of cake every time you want a bite. You don't need to eat the whole cake because it's going to be there next time. Right. But that's this thing of like where we're very like, it's this all or nothing kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if it feels like it's too much or it's too big or it's too indulgent or, they call it a guilty pleasure. Well, now I'm starting to see like, oh, well, if you never give it to yourself and then you finally give it to yourself, you binge, you go at it's so much. Well, what if we could just get to a place where it's like, I'm not going to withhold anything. I'm going to experience life in the 5 senses and I'm going to savor this bite and I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to love the bite of the chocolate cake, right? But there's this idea of we restrict ourselves and we don't allow ourselves to fully experience life.
Yeah.
And coming back to even emotions or feelings or things like that, I think a lot of times depression or whatever happens because we're living in a world where when people say, how are you doing? They say, good, fine, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, something's wrong with me. Well, as lit up as I am here right now, I want you to know that I allow myself to cry. I cried earlier before I even walked in your door. I was listening to a Marco Polo from a friend and I could feel what she was feeling. And I was just like, oh man, like, but if we allow ourselves to feel all the feelings, then we don't put ourselves into a place that's debilitating because I'd waited so long to feel it. Or I numbed.
Yep.
I always tell people this, we can't selectively numb. So, there's prescription medicine out there to help you not feel anxiety, to help you not feel depression. But I'm telling you right now, you will also not feel exquisite joy and you will not feel exquisite pleasure.
Right.
There, again, it's on the same coin. One side is pleasure and one is pain. And that is what humanness is. Yeah. It's like as little kids, we are so fine to fall and scrape or break an arm or whatever. We don't think, oh, I'm not going to jump on the tramp. If I do that front flip, I might fall and break my arm. Yeah. But we get conditioned to do that. Yes. And then over time, so I was out on roller skates this week in my neighborhood, just like skating around. And my neighbor drove by and was like, Kate, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. And I'm like, so what? I'm going to keep living life. Like I'm just going to keep getting on the roller skates because so what?
I love that. Yeah. That's beautiful. Very well said. And I think, you were talking a lot how kind of women do certain things. Men, I think, in general, and women do this too. Sure. We suppress, push down our feelings. Men get angry. Yeah. We sometimes get physically violent because of that. Because again, we want to avoid, I don't want to go there. Right. But when we can allow, like you said, to feel it and experience it and just let it work through you. How cool is that?
I know.
But it's easier said than done. I know that. But man, is that some of the things you teach in your master classes and stuff?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. In fact, this conversation came up this week. And I just want to say to all of the men listening and to you, I feel like it's when it comes to feelings and emotions, you guys have been told from a young age that boys don't cry. You don't act like that. Pull it together. What's wrong with you? You wuss, whatever it is, right? So emotions mean you're weak.
Right.
That's what you've been told.
Mm-hmm.
So for a long time, you've had to put a mask on to like not and to just toughen up. And I think most men are just inside.
Yes.
Just I
Hurting.
just think, oh gosh, can I just hug you and just like it's going to be okay? And of course, that's why there's the addiction and the numbing, right? It's like it feels like it's too much. And then you have women on the flip side of that, right? That it's like, just be calm, just be calm, just be calm. And then it bubbles up and it bubbles up and it bubbles up and then she erupts and then it's like, she's crazy.
Right.
So men want to fight and they're angry and women are crazy. And the truth is, it's like, if we can give ourselves permission, that's what I say, just permission to feel, just permission to feel it.
Yeah.
We don't have to define it. You don't have to be it. I'm really particular in my words. And so instead of saying I am sad, if you can say, I feel sad.
Yeah.
Because when you say I am, that means you are that.
You're possessing it.
That's right. Versus I'm feeling this.
Gotcha.
So I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. Oftentimes frustration and anger lead to movement and action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you can see those emotions as like, okay, this means this isn't working anymore, or I need to make a change, or I need to move forward, or like, or maybe it's a feeling of frustration that we usually don't act out on but the truth is maybe it's time to have a boundary about something, or to make a comment or say like, hey, that's actually not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, well, I have to do it because they expect me to do it. And now I have resentment and I'm frustrated. It's all just fascinating how I think oftentimes we think we're doing it for someone else.
Right.
But are we really? And maybe that's just a story that we're telling ourselves. And maybe if we chose ourselves and said, hey, I want to support you, whatever it might be, maybe that's even giving other people permission to do the same thing.
Yeah. Very well said. It needed to be said. Thank you. Yeah. Really good. So, you do these master classes, you do coaching, you do speaking events and stuff. What's on the horizon for you? Like, because you seem to think big.
Yeah.
Do you got anything else on top of what you're already doing that you're thinking about maybe doing down the road?
Yeah. So I'm writing a book.
Nice.
I'm doing it. I'm writing a book. I've been writing it. It's happening. It's the most vulnerable thing I've ever even imagined. And it is harder than I ever thought it would be for lots of reasons. I mean, one thing I realize is that, so for me, the way it happens is the idea comes.
Okay.
And then I say yes to it, but I don't have the outline or the map, or I don't know. It's this trust fall. I was actually talking to a client about this today. I'm like, okay, so you went with your gut, you went with your intuition, and you made the decision. And now what?
Yeah.
And she's like, I feel like I'm like, you just keep trusting it. And every day you show up consistently. So I'm writing this book.
Cool.
And it's been fascinating because, when I first started and it became so, vast of where could this go? And part of my writing process, I hired a writing coach, and she had me do a juicy timeline. And in the juicy timeline, there was a lot of me writing specific events that happened in my life. And what I realized is that, writing this book is more healing. There's more processing. There's a lot more going into this. And so I'm taking my time with it, but I'm also being realistic and like knowing that, Kate, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is a thing. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And oftentimes I just am trying to wait till it's like just perfect. And I'm giving myself permission to not do that, but to consistently show up and write the book. And the book is called Turn On, and it's all about turning on your life in every aspect of your life and how to really create a life that you can't wait to wake up to. So that might be the solution for you, waking up happy every day.
Yeah.
And in a good mood.
Absolutely.
You're like, I'm living the life that I can't wait to wake up to.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the book is big. I have some,
cool.
3 retreats this year, which I've added in a couples retreat that my partner and we've been together for 3.5 years. We're doing that retreat, and just a lot. It's called Ignite the Fire, because the passion goes out, right? And like what happens? Well, how can we bring that back and bring the spark back.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. That's a new thing going on. And then, so
Wow.
some big cool things with retreats and gatherings. And
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. If people want to do your retreat and they want to get involved or get your book when it's ready and do, sign up for coaching and things like that, what's the best way for them to do something like that?
That's a great question. So if you follow me, Instagram is my favorite platform, and it's Kate Strong World. And I have a lot of free resources. I am very, very much my good girlfriend and your friend, Tiff Peterson, has been my business coach. She's fantastic.
She's amazing.
She's talked to me a lot about letting people go on a first date with me and sample me and see if they want to, take it even further. I love her analogy in that. So let me tell you, there's lots of opportunities to go on a first date with me.
There you go.
I give away a lot of free content. Again, part of my mission is not just I love that I've turned what I do into my job, right? Because it would have fallen apart if I wouldn't have. But there's a lot of resources there. There's a pleasure guide. There's a self-care checklist. Like there's tons of stuff that you can do to get started, free resources, all the things. I'm always doing something like once a month, there's something, a master class or a group coaching session or something. So follow me there. And then if you want to get on my website, it's mystrongworld.com.
Yes.
And same thing there. You'll be able to get on my resource page. Okay. You'll see this podcast will be on there and then many other podcasts are there as well as like favorite books and things like that. Because sometimes people are like, Kate, where do I even start? Right?
Yeah. Where's the starting point?
Yeah. And truth is truth. Mm-hmm. And so I say it my way. You say it your way. Mm-hmm. And there are many other great ones who have been out there who have said it their way and I've learned from. And so I love bringing in all of the wise ones and the resources to validate these same points over and over and over again.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds amazing. Got a lot going on. That is so cool. Those, writing that book, like you said, it's been kind of a therapeutic process for you. And I've done the same thing and it took way longer than I ever anticipated, but it was one of those like, man, I learned a lot still more about myself going through all of that and stuff. And so, but I love what you said is just go for it, lean into it and just go do the next thing and just keep trying.
I agree. And the one thing I always say, when things seem really overwhelming, I think a lot of times we see someone and we think, wow, I'm inspired by that, but like, how? It seems too big. So my suggestion is just take the next best step. What's the next thing that you can do? So literally, like, maybe it's that you just pick up a pen, get a notebook, just start writing some ideas down or whatever. Maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just like, I want to start exercising. Okay. So just go get your shoes and your exercise clothes and just put it out.
Yeah.
Just have it sitting out there. Right. And then you might be like, okay, I'm going to put it on.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe I just walk out the front door and take this phone call and walk while I'm talking.
Yeah.
So it's these little micro behaviors. It's not this big thing. And for me, when I pulled that back, even with writing the book, I'm like, okay, Kate, it's fine. Like, what's the next topic? What's the next idea? Like, what are you, almost like I'm taking it and just brain dumping, right? We'll get to the organization later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because then it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Right.
Because I think people see where maybe you're at in your life and they're like, I'll never get there. I'm so far behind here. How would I even do that? So I love that you point out simple little steps. You may have already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it a little differently because you've already shared some amazing advice. If there's someone listening to your voice right now in a dark place, they're struggling, they're not sure what to do, they just feel hopeless. What would you tell them?
You matter. You matter, and there's no one else on this earth like you. And maybe you don't know that right now and what that looks like, but you matter. And people would be really sad without you being here, even if you don't know that and you don't believe that.
Wow. We're both tearing up here.
Yeah, we are.
That was powerful. I could feel that energy from what you said. Thank you. Kate, you're amazing. Tiffany wasn't kidding when she was talking you up to me. I was like, wow. I can't wait to meet you, and I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us today and sharing your life with us. And I'm just impressed with the way you're being a light to other people, and I can feel that here, and we're lucky to have you.
Well, same here, and thank you for doing what you do, for creating a platform and giving people like me and all of your other guests a place to come and talk. And your podcast is just crushing it. I mean, literally. And, you know, it's evidence that people care. They want to hear. This is good information. Yeah. And it's a good thing that you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, I encourage everyone listening to this to go to her website and reach out to her, sign up for a master class. I mean, the energy that she brings and the stuff that she teaches. I love what you said. Pain is my purpose, and my content is my medicine. And that can be the same for you as well. Come listen to her content, and it'll be medicine for you. And I'm excited for this book when it comes out. We'll have you back on. We should.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. So, I love you guys for tuning in week after week and for sharing these episodes. Like I always say, if you have a friend, a loved one, a son or a daughter or a partner or whoever it may be that's struggling, give them the link to this episode. Let them hear from Kate. It will inspire them. It'll at least wake them up a little bit. It'll turn them on a little bit in a good, positive way that you can then reach out and go, what else do you need from me? And it'll be a good way to open up a conversation. So please share. And one last thank you. You're the best. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Yeah. Till next time, everyone. Love you.